Welcome to the HMO Property Podcast, where we connect, educate, and inspire the UK's HMO property community. So stop what you're doing, sit back, relax, and enjoy the story. What's up, HMO Nation, and welcome to another episode of the HMO Property Podcast with me, Rupert Wallace. In this episode, we're interviewing successful HMO property investor, Matt Baker. Matt is going to take us on his HMO investment journey, including the ups, the downs, the highs, and the lows. Now, Matt's been investing in HMOs for some 4 years now. He's completed 12 projects and currently houses 82 tenants. And that's across 9 different locations. So let's jump straight in. Matt, welcome to the show.
Hi, Rupert. How are you doing?
I'm good.
Thank you
Good
for having
morning.
me.
You're welcome, mate. No probs. Great to see you. Before we dive into the details, Matt, tell us about yourself. Give us your background before you started your HMO journey.
Okay, so before HMOs, I was a musician. I still am a musician. So I actually call myself a piano playing property investor because I've been playing piano professionally since I was about 18. Studying music, went to university. We played lots of jazz, and going through the first, I suppose, 10 years of my professional career, it was lots of fun. Did lots of session work for bands, musicians, based in London and Edinburgh, and it was a really good time, but not particularly financially viable. And that's one of those things that music is. It takes a lot of time, but you don't get paid a lot for your for that time. So it was a fantastic time of life, but I think property is giving me the opportunity and actually the financial wealth to be able to go and do music on my terms.
Excellent. Give us some of the highlights of being a professional pianist.
So we did quite a few festivals. So Tea in the Park is probably the biggest one,
Awesome.
up in Scotland. Yeah, so that was fun. Being held behind Beyonce's tour bus for about 2 hours was not. We were kind of shipped in the back of Tea in the Park, and they said, "Yeah, you got to stop." We waited. What's going on? It was Beyonce's tour bus, because she was playing that same year. But really loved it. Lots of recording, gigs around the world, with a couple of bands, and one of them were called the Mars Patrol. They kind of not doing much at the moment anymore, but it was a good time to be in music.
Awesome. How many years were you doing that, Matt?
Well, I kind of had different hats, because from the age of 18, I was a jazz musician for about 5-6 years. Recorded a few albums with my own bands, and then when I left uni, came to London, and that was probably about another 7-8 years of working in music in the London scene. Amazing,
man. Amazing. Do you know what? There's something about, I love to do that, to be a professional pianist. I just think it's such a fantastic thing to be able to pull out at any given party and get the crowd going. I think it's great.
Although the piano player doesn't get as much attention as the guitarist. The guitarist can put it out the campfire, whereas it's hard to pull out your piano out of your sleeve. So yeah.
Matt, tell us how you got into the world of HMO property investing.
Well, that was kind of a bit by accident, really, because as well as being a gigging musician, I also taught piano, and I had a music school in South Oxfordshire. And it was when I was trying to grow that business that I came across different networking events, different business events. And I went to an event in beginning of 2015, and there were other speakers talking about SEO marketing, social media marketing, public speaking, share trading, and property investing. And there's a lady called Jill Fielding who was speaking about property investing and how you could get into it with no time and no money. And obviously those two things sparked something in me going, actually, well, property is always something that I thought was a good idea to do, but I thought I'd have to make my money in something else and try to make it in the music industry, really, make my millions there. Then I would invest it in property. But actually, when I heard her speak, it was like, well, actually, I could make my millions in property, then actually invest that into the music. That actually makes a lot more sense. So that's how I started. So I actually educated myself and then just got buying and HMOs. So I bought my first HMO that year.
Excellent. And was anything holding you back getting into property?
Yeah, well, I suppose the initial thing that would have held me back was not having the cash to do it. Mm-hmm. And obviously the mindset that actually it is possible without having to start with well, you can do it from a standing start. Whereas I had assumed that you have to have money to get going, that you have to be in the trade, in the business in some way, shape or form. So I think that was a misnomer, and kind of getting myself around other property investors and developers was the thing that actually helped me overcome that.
It's a common limiting belief, and you're not the first person to answer the question like that. In fact, it's very commonly answered like that. So a good limiting belief to smash through. Right. Tell us about your very first HMO property deal, Matt. Where it was, what you bought it for, what you spent, how it went, what you enjoyed. Give us a flavour.
Okay, so my very first HMO deal is up in Warrington, and it was bought it for £105,000, and it was a 4 bedrooms mid-terrace property, and it was run down. It'd been lived in by a kind of LHA tenant for about 5 or 6 years, left it in a bit of a state of disrepair, and what we decided to do was to smash it all apart and then start again. So
amazing.
We spent about £65,000 on it, and we turned it upside down. Literally turned it upside down. So we took the kitchen upstairs and all the bedrooms downstairs. Because as anyone who's in HMOs knows, when it comes to refinancing properties and getting valuations, the commercial valuations that you can get with HMOs, the less like a family home it is, the more likely you are to get your higher commercial valuations. So that's what we attempted to do there, and that then became a 5 bedroomed HMO, the very first one. So that performed very well, making around about between £800 and £900 profit, so per month. So happy with that as a very first one.
Good deal to start on. Matt, go into a bit more detail. What did you buy it for? What did you spend on the refurb, and what was it worth at the end?
Okay, so we bought it for £105,000. We spent roughly 65,000 on it, so total of 170,000. That property is worth around about £200,000 if it was to be revalued or refinanced today.
Perfect. And it cash flows $900. Sounds like a great first deal.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah, can't say better than that.
No. Who doesn't want an extra best part of £1,000 every single month?
Exactly.
All right, Matt, how has HMO investing changed your life?
Well, HMO investing has, well, first of all, financially, but also confidence-wise. I think that the finances are they're not a given, because obviously you don't just get the money. You've got to put the work in to create that income. But it is more about the confidence, understanding that that anyone can do this, and actually it's grown my confidence as a business owner, because investing in HMOs has really made me work on business systems. I have to be organised, have to work with lots of other people, and it's grown myself as a person. I think that's probably the biggest thing that's come out of investing in HMOs, realistically.
Excellent. Good answer. We like that. It's not all about the cash flow.
No, the cash is cash is king, obviously, and cash flow is the life blood of every business. But I think actually, if your mindset is more important, because you're going to have hurdles and there's always issues. And it's actually, if you have the wrong mindset, those hurdles will stop you. They'll hold you back, and you won't go as far as you can to reach your potential.
I couldn't agree more. Matt, what's your favourite part of HMO property investing?
My favourite part is probably putting the deal together. So I'm not a massive fan of trawling through Rightmove or Zoopla. Now I have a business partner that does that now. But I really love, when we kind of get a list of properties and we've already narrowed them down and we go through them and we're like, yeah, this one's that, and looking at floor plans and rearranging them. I actually really love dealing with planning. That's one thing I've it's
quite unusual.
It is quite unusual. I really love the planning aspect, because since we started 3.5-4 years ago, all of our HMOs now, we only do ones that go through planning, because that's our niche. We want large HMOs and Article 4 HMOs. That's what we want. So we go through planning, and actually understanding the planning system is a bit of a game. It has something which I really love. So using permitted development rights and then going through planning, and I actually love rearranging and doing that side of it. Once the builders are on site, I'm not actually that fussed. I will go and have a look. I really love to see it transformed, but setting the project up and pushing go is probably what I enjoy the most.
Excellent. Love that. You sound like, you're a pianist. You're obviously a creative person. So actually putting the deal together sounds like it fits you pretty well.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Matt, we've talked about the past. Before we move on to the present and your future plans in HMO property, let's take a minute to thank our sponsors.
Are you looking for an effortless HMO mortgage experience? If that's a yes, there's only one place to go: www.thehmomortgagebroker.co.uk, the UK's #1 specialist HMO mortgage broker. They're so specialised that they don't do anything else. HMO mortgages, HMO remortgages, and HMO bridging. That's it. They have access to every HMO lender out there, and even some exclusive products not available to other brokers. With lightning fast service and A1 communication, they're easily the best HMO broker in town. So to experience HMO lending made easy, go to www.thehmomortgagebroker.co.uk today.
Matt, fast forwarding to the present day, tell us about your current portfolio.
Okay, so as I alluded to in your previous question, the current portfolio is taking a slightly different shape. We're going slightly larger rooms. We're going all en suite. We're going planning game. So the current portfolio, when we're adding to it, it's bigger properties. And one thing that we've learned is that you can't just take a building, cut it up, and expect to rent it out. Because I definitely did my research to begin with, but I think we do a lot more due diligence now on making sure that we put together what the tenant wants, what the tenant needs, because HMOs are essentially all about the tenant. And the existing portfolio, we talk about, instead of HMOs, we talk about co-living. We talk about the amenity, the facilities that the tenants have, and the larger projects that we're doing at the moment are all about that sense of community and building that into how we market what we create.
Perfect. Okay, so talk to me. What kind of tenants do you house? What kind of market fit do you go for? Do you go for high end? Do you go for workers? Do you go for low end? Or are you mixed across the portfolio?
We are mixed to a degree. And you mentioned at the beginning that we're in 9 different locations, and that is not by accident. We started in one area. We grew a portfolio in that area, and then we thought, well, we're quite happy with this portfolio here. Now let's pick some other areas, and we researched from scratch what was going to work there, who our tenants are going to be, and what the cash flow would be, and then currently growing in a couple of areas off the back of that. And high end would be in most of the marketplaces. We go larger rooms. We've got a couple of areas that are more blue collar workers, and slightly lower rents. We don't spec those as high. And actually, we are at the moment we're in the process of purchasing an old guest house, which actually will be for social housing tenants. Because one thing we've realised is, we're quite good at creating these high-end HMOs, the things that are designed to be really, really nice and that command the best rents in the area. But actually, that's not necessarily everything that you need as a landlord. And we felt that we should be doing something more socially responsible to help the other end of the housing market that actually really need that accommodation, probably a lot more than the people at the top end. So we thought that was a good thing to do.
It is a great and noble thing to do. Tell me honestly, do the numbers work as well?
Well, this is our first one. Do the numbers work as well? Depends how you structure it. And we think we have a model that will work better than our high-end HMOs.
With lower time input by any chance, because it's social? Is it fully managed, or are you doing it?
So yes, we will. In order to do this, we will need to employ someone specifically to deal with this. So there's going to be an upfront cost to us as a business, but once it's up and running, we do believe that it will create more money, because we'll be dealing with the different councils and directly, and they have budgets to basically create emergency housing.
Got it. Understood. Sounds like a great one. Now, you've done at least 12 HMOs. Tell us about your single best HMO investment today.
Okay, well, I'll tell you the one which I love the most currently, because I think it will change when my current project is finished. I think that will probably become my favourite, but we'll go with the one that is finished and all done. But it had its downs as well as its ups. But this one was an old office, an insurance broker's office in the centre of Warrington, and it was in an okay condition. We bought it. It had ground floor and first floor. This project also had a basement, which was relatively dry. It had quite a bit of head height, and also had quite a high attic room as well. So we thought there must be something that we can do with this to make it better. So what we decided to do, after we went around a few different iterations, but we ended up with splitting it into a large HMO and then a flat in the ground floor. Because it was an office, we could use permitted development to create as many dwellings within it as we liked. And we thought, let's not split it as flats, because we think there's a higher value as getting a commercial yield-based valuation on the total building, which turned out to be true.
Excellent. All right. So, but why was it your best? Why did you like it so much?
I love it because we get 20% above the market rent, and it's never empty.
Tell us your secret, Matt.
By creating the best product in the market. So by having the rooms are big, we're talking 12 to 15 square meters. The en-suites are probably 3 square meters. We didn't make it pokey. We didn't put in as many rooms as we could. We used the building to its best. We created a lot of amenity. So we've got 25 square meters of space for the 8 tenants in there. So it might be close to 30 square meters of space, because actually that's what's important, and identifying what the tenants want. And because it's over the road from the station, the main station, which can take you to Manchester, Liverpool, to London in an hour and 45 minutes, it's a great attraction to tenants, because they don't need to worry about commuting. It's just on their doorstep.
You can get to London from an hour and 45 minutes from Warrington. The investors down south, I'm not sure they know that. Otherwise, they might be following you up there pretty soon. Takes me longer than that to get across London.
I know. It's one of those towns that could be a commuter town. It's that train. If you get the fast train, that only stops once in between. I think it stops at Milton Keynes and London. That's it. It's quicker than Manchester, I think.
Fab. And who wouldn't want 20% above market rents? Fantastic. Matt, next up, tell us about one significant mistake that you've made in your HMO business that by sharing you might help others avoid.
Okay, so I think the biggest mistake was probably around builders and contractors and doing due diligence. So it's actually on that same project we had in Warrington that we were looking for a contractor. We found a contractor through a contact who recommended this person, and then they had a business partner that they were working with, and we trusted the person that we were given, and then that person couldn't do it, and then we ended up taking on the other person's business partner, who ended up to be not very good. So actually, and the reason we did that is because we really just wanted to get it going. We kind of didn't do as much due diligence as we normally would, or definitely would now. So actually, I think that the lesson was in just, doesn't matter how much pressure you are under to get things started, how much you want things to progress, because actually, that cost us a few £1,000 in extra costs, because the guy basically did things to make the property worse, so that he could fix it, essentially.
What did he do? Come on, give us the details.
Not knocking down walls.
Oh, nice.
That didn't necessarily need knocking down, and knocking them down before he told us about it. He said, "Oh, this wall isn't structurally sound, therefore we're going to replace it." And then before we had a chance to get an engineer around to check it, he'd knocked it down and said, "Right, we're going to rebuild it." And despite having a specification to work to, he just did his own thing. So we decided quite quickly, thankfully, to bring in a project manager to basically manage him out, and then retender properly for the scheme. So that was our biggest learning. And off the back of that, we now do not do any projects without our own independent project manager as an intermediary. And yes, we pay a little bit extra for that, but actually we're doing big stuff, and we're doing, last year we had about 6 projects on the go at the same time. Mm-hmm. You can't manage that from a distance. And I live in Brighton, and I was living in London while this was going on. I'd moved down to Brighton, and you've got to have someone who's there, your eyes and ears on site, because you've got to really take the reins of it. Otherwise, these things can really run away from you. And that's our biggest learning, because as I said at the beginning, I like to push go on projects, and then I'm not the best at keeping on top of it. I can't do that on a weekly basis, doing the number and the scale of projects we want to do. So we have the professionals to do that for us, and I think that is our biggest learning.
Matt, you live in Brighton. You've got projects in 9 locations. Are you on the road all the time?
No. We that's what, as I said, we have teams. So
who does your viewings for initial projects when you go and try and find a deal?
So we depending on where it is, will depend on who we send. But I generally, if it's more than probably an hour and a half away from us, I'll send someone that we've got in the area. So it will be probably a project manager that we have, or a letting agent or an estate agent that I know and trust. So we'll go send them. And because we do most of our appraisals on desktop appraisals, we know what we're buying. We know the size of what we're buying, because we're basically buying space, because we know how we're going to revalue it. We're going to revalue it commercially. We buy the space. If there's enough space, we're going to go and spend a lot of money on that property. So as long as we know roughly how much we're going to spend, then we know whether that deal works. And we're generally buying asking or just below asking price, because we're adding value through planning permission.
Got it. Lovely. Matt, tell us about your HMO portfolio plans for the next 12 months.
Okay, so we actually have very specific plans for the next 12 months. I actually started in October last year, when I went on a mastermind retreat, and within that retreat, I and my business partner Niall, we set a plan it's called Project 96. And Project 96 is to add 96 rooms or units to our portfolio this year. So that whether that's flats or rooms. And so we started. The plan was to start looking in February, and get 12 units agreed every month from February to October, when we're going to go back to Bali and go, yes, we got 96 units, which is the plan. So we had doubled our portfolio every year since we started, and 96 is pretty much doubling the 83 that we had, or we currently have. So it's it's going to be good.
So when you go back to Bali, is it going to be Project 192?
I don't know. It's well, that's the thing, because when you go in a mastermind, you go with an idea of what it is you think you should do, and then when you brainstorm it and you kind of talk it out, you realize that maybe is that the right thing, and then you actually the whole point of having a coach there is to bounce the ideas off, and actually we thought we were going to go into developments this year, and it was very plainly put in front of our faces. Well, you guys have just found something that really works in HMOs. Why don't you just do that and just do a lot of those? And we were like, oh, but HMOs are boring now. We've done a few HMOs. So actually what we've done is combine what we like about HMOs, which is the more fancy pants, the more interesting side of it with the planning and the works, and also the high income lettings, which you don't necessarily get when you do kind of build to rent schemes. If you're building flats, you don't necessarily get the same high cash flow, especially not if you're building houses. You might end up with decent equity, but we are a cash flow business. We want cash flow right now, and that may change when we go back when we go back.
Got it. Is there anything apart from building the portfolio that you're up to in property or outside of property that you'd like to share with HMO Nation?
Yeah, so as well as building our own portfolio, we've dubbed what we're creating are what we call next level HMOs. So they are HMOs that take your portfolio to the next level. And what we'd like to do is to share that with others and to help others to take their HMO portfolios or even just their property portfolios to the next level. And we've set up a mastermind group to help people to do that, based down in Brighton. It's very relaxed, as you can tell. We're pretty chilled out. I'm quite creative. It's not like stuffy, sooty environments. So once a month we meet with our masterminders and we help them to look for projects. We have experts coming in. It's relaxed, but it's very focused, and people find stuff. Just did our mastermind last week. We probably found about £3 or £4 million worth of deals just in that one day. So we're pushing them to go and appraise and go get offers in, and looking forward to seeing the results of that. So that's something that we're really, really passionate about as well, is helping others to achieve, because we have an abundance mentality. Is that a lot of people say HMOs don't work, HMOs are saturated, we can't get tenants. They moan about the tenants. They say, oh, this happened, that happened, and they start to hate their HMO portfolio. They start to hate their tenants. You can't do that. Because you have to love your tenants. Your tenants are the lifeblood of your business. They are the people that pay for your lifestyle. If you want the flash cars or the financial freedom or the ability to do what you absolutely love, whether it's property or not, you've got to love your tenant. You've got to put your tenant first. As soon as you do that, profits are inevitable. Profits will grow.
Love that. Got to put your tenant first. Next up, Matt, what advice would you give current HMO investors? People that are already in the market.
People already in the market. I think it's probably just an extension of what I was just saying. It's to ask your tenants, whether they think you're doing a good job, to review what you do on an ongoing basis, and to create money, to create wealth. It's not necessarily about buying more properties. It's about making sure what you've already got works well. So an HMO might make you say £800 profit. To get that £800 to be a higher profit, you've got to look at your expenses. You've got to look at what you're providing the tenants. Is there a way that you could tweak your rents and increase them slightly by adding value to what the tenants get? Is there any way that you can monitor your bills? Are you overpaying on stuff? Can you negotiate down? So I think it's about reviewing what you've got and asking your tenants, Are they happy with what they get? Could you do anything better? Obviously, if you don't say, do you want this, do you want this, do you want this, do you want this, do you want this? Because they're obviously going to say yes, 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 yes. But there are ways of asking open-ended questions. And again, that's part of what we teach. And I think that an existing HMO landlord should be doing that first before growing their portfolio, or at least as well as looking for new projects.
I believe the phrase is sweating your assets. Not squeezing, sweating.
Sweating the assets or driving your return.
You got it. How about any advice that you'd give people who are looking to get into HMOs for the very first time?
Okay, so looking to get into HMOs for the very first time. Now, I think this comes down to making sure, again, that you can fill your rooms. So the mistake that a lot of people make is jumping on bandwagons. So going to networking events and hearing people talking about this area or that area, and HMOs work really well over here. I need to go over there, and people following, kind of doing rainbow chasing, and that's why HMOs suddenly start not to work for people. It's because they buy the house next door to the one which is an HMO, next to the other one which is an HMO, and they oversupply a very specific area because someone said it was a good idea, and they don't do their own research. So to ensure that you're always going to have tenants, we've got to make sure that you've got a lot of tenants that want rooms in that area. And so 3 things to look for: good communication links, only buying within a 1 mile radius of a train station, making sure there are 3 major employers, and that your population is over 100,000. And if you've got a university, that's a bonus. So I think if you follow those tips, generally you will have better chances of filling your rooms.
Love it. Matt, before we sign off, we'd like you to recommend one great HMO resource or book that you'd like to share. Then let HMO Nation know how they can connect with you, and then we'll say goodbye.
Okay, so I think it's not necessarily an HMO resource. It's more about a personal management resource, and it's a book that I love called The One Thing. And
yes, I know it well.
Yeah, and actually, because there are so many different moving parts in putting an HMO together, you start getting drawn over here or drawn over there, and you try and do 1,000 things at once. But the way to achieve success and a successful business is to focus on one thing at a time. And that book, The One Thing, it just really talks about that, and just prioritizing the thing which is going to make you the biggest difference in your life at that time, but it's down to the thing which is going to make the biggest difference in your life today. So which of the things that is going around your head is the most important? Do it first. It's a bit like Eat That Frog as well. So you get it done, it's going to make the biggest difference, and then actually the rest of the stuff then falls into place.
You got it. And how about if HMO Nation want to connect with you?
Well, there's a couple of places you connect with us. So the website, scottbakerproperties.co.uk. Scott Baker Properties is myself, Matt Baker, and my business partner, Niall Scott. My name is not Scott, although I've started to be called Scott by some people. But yeah, scottbakerproperties.co.uk, or you can find us on Facebook /Scott Baker Properties. Yeah, I suggest send us an email through our website, or send me a message via our Facebook page.
Excellent. Matt, thanks for sharing your journey. We salute you. Let's get an HMO high five, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks.
Cheers.
Thanks for joining us. If you've enjoyed this and want more informational, educational, and inspirational HMO property content, then please hit the subscribe button and give us a like. See you next time.